Supreme Commander Jae-sung stood in the war room of the massive human command ship Eternal Vigil, watching as holographic displays showed the Devourer advance across the galaxy. Red markers indicated consumed systems, and there were far too many of them. "Status report," he called out to his staff. Dr. Yuri, her consciousness split between her physical body and the ship's computer systems, spoke without looking up from her calculations. 17 star systems completely consumed in the past month. The Devourers are adapting faster than our models predicted. Each group that feeds grows stronger and develops new abilities. General Inho pointed to the tactical display. They're not moving randomly anymore. The initial scouts were just feeding, but now they're showing coordinated behavior. They're learning from what they consume, including the memories and knowledge of everyone they absorb. Jae-sung nodded grimly. The situation was worse than even humanity had expected. The Devourers weren't just ancient machines, they were evolving, becoming smarter and more dangerous with every world they consumed. A communication alert chimed, and Chancellor Haewon's image appeared on the screen. The once proud Zenthari leader looked exhausted and afraid. "Supreme Commander," she said formally, "the Dominion Council has voted unanimously to place all our military forces under human command. We need your help." It had taken the destruction of 3 entire sectors and the loss of millions of lives, but the Dominion had finally accepted reality. Jae-sung felt no satisfaction in their surrender, only sadness at how much time and life had been wasted on pride. "Chancellor," he replied, "we never wanted command over your forces. We wanted partnership. But I accept your offer, because the alternative is extinction for all of us." The combined fleet that gathered at the Nexus staging area was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dominion ships flew alongside human vessels, their crews working together despite 48,000 years of separation and mistrust. Admiral Saiwu commanded the Unity, a massive hybrid vessel that combined human technology with the best the Dominion had to offer. The ship's hull was partially alive, able to repair itself and adapt to different threats. Its weapons could manipulate gravity, phase through dimensions, and strike targets across vast distances. "All ships report ready," came the voice of Captain Wu Jin from the human destroyer New Dawn. "Devourer main fleet detected at coordinate 77 Alpha. Estimated strength over 2,000 units. Saiwu felt the weight of responsibility. This was it. The final battle that would determine whether organic life survived in the galaxy or was consumed by ancient hunger. "All vessels, jump on my mark," he commanded. "Remember, we only get one chance at this. If we fail here, there won't be anywhere left to retreat to." The combined fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the galactic core, where the largest concentration of Devourers had gathered. What they saw defied description. The ancient machines had grown enormous, some the size of small moons. They moved through space like living shadows, consuming entire stars and leaving only darkness behind. "By all the ancestors," whispered Admiral Taemin from his Korthak battleship. "How do we fight something like that?" Engineer Bora, her consciousness linked to the human command network, analyzed the enemy formations. "They're building something," she reported. "All that consumed matter isn't being converted into more Devourers. They're constructing a massive structure around the galactic core." Dr. Youngmin's voice crackled over the communication system. "It's a harvesting array. If they complete it, they'll be able to drain energy directly from the galactic center's black hole. The power they'd gain would let them consume entire galaxies in days instead of centuries." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about saving their own galaxy anymore. If the Devourers completed their harvesting array, they would become unstoppable across the entire universe. "All units, begin assault pattern Omega," Saiwu ordered. "Human ships will phase strike the outer perimeter. Dominion forces will provide covering fire with quantum artillery. We need to break their formation before they can complete the array." The battle that followed was beyond the scope of any conflict in galactic history. Human vessels moved like ghosts, appearing inside Devourer formations and striking at critical points before vanishing again. Dominion ships provided massive firepower, their weapons enhanced by human technology to actually damage the ancient machines. But the Devourers were learning. Each attack was analyzed, each tactic was countered. They began to adapt their defenses specifically to human phase-shifting technology and Dominion quantum weapons. "They're evolving too fast," reported Captain Hyun-woo from the front lines. Every time we develop a new strategy, they counter it within minutes. Admiral Dong Min, commanding the human heavy assault ships, had an idea. What if we stop trying to be clever? The Devourers adapt to patterns, but what if we hit them with pure chaos? He explained his plan rapidly. Instead of coordinated attacks, every ship would use completely random tactics. Human vessels would attack with different technologies simultaneously. Dominion ships would fire everything they had in unpredictable patterns. The goal wasn't efficiency, it was to overwhelm the Devourer's ability to adapt. Chaos Protocol authorized, Sai Wu announced. All ships abandon standard tactics. Hit them with everything in any order using any method you can think of. The battle became a storm of random destruction. Ships fired gravity bombs and phase torpedoes simultaneously. Human soldiers teleported directly onto Devourer surfaces, while Dominion Marines attacked with plasma weapons. Ancient human psionics worked alongside modern Zenthari technology in combinations that shouldn't have been possible. And slowly, incredibly, it began to work. The Devourers couldn't adapt to pure randomness. Their ancient programming, designed to analyze and counter organized threats, struggled with the chaotic assault. But victory came at a terrible price. Ship after ship was consumed as they pressed their attacks home. Admiral Sung Ho sacrificed his entire squadron to destroy a devourer the size of a planet. Captain So Jin flew her damaged cruiser directly into the harvesting array's control center, disabling the entire structure at the cost of her life and her crew. In the end, it was General In-ho who delivered the killing blow. Using technology that humanity had developed in their darkest hour in the void between galaxies, he merged his consciousness with the Eternal Vigil's main weapon, a device that could unravel matter at the quantum level. The beam that erupted from the human flagship was pure annihilation. It struck the largest devourer at the center of their formation, and the ancient machine simply ceased to exist. The destruction spread outward in a chain reaction, consuming the other devourers and the partially completed harvesting array. When the light faded, the galactic core was scarred but free. The immediate threat was over, but the cost had been enormous. Nearly half the combined fleet was gone, including some of the finest officers from both human and Dominion forces. Ambassador Jun Ho stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly, representing a galaxy forever changed by the conflict. Representatives from all species sat together, human and Dominion alike. Their old rivalries made meaningless by what they had faced together. "We are no longer the same beings who began this war," Jun Ho said quietly. "Humans have learned that survival requires cooperation, not isolation. The Dominion species have learned that strength comes from unity, not domination. We have all learned that the universe is far larger and more dangerous than we ever imagined." Chancellor He Wan, now bearing scars from the battle, nodded in agreement. "The old order is dead. The divisions that kept us apart for millennia no longer matter. We are all children of this galaxy, and we must protect it together." The new alliance was unlike anything that had existed before. Human technology merged with Dominion resources and knowledge. Scientists from both civilizations worked together to develop better defenses against threats from beyond the galaxy. Military forces trained together, sharing tactics and strategies that had been proven in the crucible of the Devourer War. But perhaps most importantly, humanity took on a new role as the galaxy's guardians. Their long exile in the void between galaxies had taught them to watch for threats that younger civilizations couldn't detect or understand. Supreme Commander Jae Sung, now bearing the title of Guardian of the Rim, established monitoring stations beyond the galactic edge. Human scout ships patrolled the dark spaces between galaxies, watching for signs of other ancient threats. "The Devourers were not the only danger out there," he explained to the assembly. "In the void, we encountered other things. Beings of pure energy, rogue artificial intelligences, cosmic parasites that feed on entire dimensions. Someone needs to watch for them, to stand guard while the galaxy heals and grows." The irony was not lost on anyone. The species that had once been hunted to the edge of extinction had become the protectors of those who had hunted them. But 48,000 years of suffering and growth had taught humanity a wisdom that younger species lacked. As the assembly session ended, Junho looked out at the mixed crowd of humans and Dominion representatives working together, planning for a future that neither could build alone. The galaxy's comfortable delusion had been shattered by humanity's return, Chancellor Haywan of the Zenthari hegemony slammed her fist on the council table. Around her, representatives from all 7 Dominion species argued loudly, their voices filled with fear and anger. "This is clearly a deception," she declared. "Humans were always cunning and manipulative. They're trying to frighten us into surrender with stories of ancient machines and galactic threats." Admiral Taymin of the Korthak Empire nodded agreement. 48,000 years of peace and prosperity, and suddenly we're supposed to believe that invisible monsters are coming to destroy us? It's convenient timing for a species that wants revenge. But what about their technology? Asked Dr. Sojin, who had been invited to present her analysis of the human ships. Their vessels defy our understanding of physics. They appeared from nowhere, communicated across impossible distances, and vanished without using any detectable propulsion. Chancellor Haywan waved dismissively. Tricks and illusions. Any sufficiently advanced technology can appear magical to those who don't understand it. That doesn't mean we should bow down to our would-be conquerors. The debate had been raging for weeks. Despite the evidence, despite the clear superiority of human technology, the Dominion Council refused to believe that cooperation was necessary. Pride, built over millennia of dominance, made them incapable of accepting that they needed help from anyone, especially from the species they had tried to exterminate. General Inho had been listening to the intercepted communications from the Dominion debates. His enhanced hearing could pick up conversations from orbit, and what he heard made him sad rather than angry. After 48,000 years, the Dominion species still saw the universe in terms of conquest and submission. They still don't understand, he told Captain Wu Jin as they stood on the observation deck of the Remembrance. They think this is about victory and defeat. Wu Jin nodded, his luminescent skin reflecting the starlight. Then perhaps it's time to show them what defeat actually looks like. The demonstration began at dawn on the Dominion capital world. Haiwan was reviewing military reports when every screen in the government complex went dark. Emergency power activated, but the screens remained black. Then slowly, text began to appear in perfect Zenthari script. This is a message from the human vessel New Horizon. We are currently positioned 3 meters above your main defense grid control center. Your shields are offline. Your weapons are offline. Your communication systems are offline. We could have disabled your entire planet's infrastructure in the time it took you to read this message. Haywan rushed to the window and looked up. There was nothing there, just empty sky. But when she checked with the Defense Ministry, they confirmed that every single military installation on the planet was experiencing total system failure. How long will this last? She demanded of General Kyung-soo, the planet's defense coordinator. Unknown, Chancellor. Our technicians can't even access the systems to run diagnostics. It's as if every computer on the planet has forgotten how to function. Similar demonstrations were happening across Dominion space. On the Korthak homeworld, Admiral Taymin watched in horror as his most advanced battleship was lifted out of orbit by invisible forces and gently placed in a different solar system. The crew was unharmed, but the message was clear. Human technology could move objects weighing millions of tons across interstellar distances as easily as picking up a pebble. Chief Engineer Bo-Ra supervised the display from the human command ship Evolution. Her consciousness was linked directly to the vessel's systems, allowing her to manipulate matter and energy with pure thought. The Dominion's most sophisticated technology seemed crude and primitive compared to what humanity had achieved. Target the Vexthari Republic next, she instructed her team. Disable their quantum communication network for exactly 1 hour, then restore it with improvements. They need to understand that we're not just more powerful, we're trying to help them. The most impressive demonstration took place in the Alterian system. Admiral Dongmin commanded a single human vessel against the entire Alterian defense fleet, over 300 ships armed with the most advanced weapons in Dominion space. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. The human ship moved like a living thing, phasing through solid matter, appearing and disappearing at will. Alterian weapons passed harmlessly through it when it chose to be intangible, while its own weapons disabled enemy ships with surgical precision. Not a single Alterian life was lost, but their entire fleet was left floating helplessly in space. Systems shut down, but life support intact. This is Admiral Dongmin to all Alterian vessels, came the transmission. Your crews are safe. Your ships will be restored to full functionality in 1 hour. This demonstration was necessary to prove a point. We could have conquered your entire civilization at any time in the past 20,000 years. We chose not to because conquest was never our goal. But even faced with such overwhelming evidence, many Dominion leaders refused to accept reality. Pride and fear made them cling to the belief that somehow, some way, they could find a method to resist or defeat the returned humans. It was then that the real threat arrived. The first Devourer scout ships appeared at the edge of the galaxy 6 months ahead of schedule. They were unlike anything the Dominion had ever encountered, perfect spheres of dark metal that seemed to absorb light itself. When they moved, space around them warped and twisted. The Alterian border fleet, still recovering from their encounter with Admiral Dongmin, was the first to make contact. Admiral Sung Woo commanded the response force, determined to prove that the Dominion could handle any threat without human help. His fleet of 200 ships opened fire with everything they had: quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, gravity bombs. Weapons that could crack planets struck the Devourer scouts with enough force to vaporize moons. The weapons had no effect whatsoever. The Devourer scouts didn't even slow down. They passed through the weapons fire as if it were nothing more than gentle rain. Then they began to feed. Sung Woo watched in horror as the nearest Devourer extended tendrils of living darkness that reached out and touched one of his battleships. The massive vessel, built from the strongest materials known to Dominion science, began to dissolve. Metal flowed like water into the Devourer, which grew larger and more solid with each moment. "All ships retreat," Sung Woo ordered, but it was too late. The Devourers had tasted Dominion technology and found it satisfactory. More tendrils reached out, and ship after ship was consumed, their matter and energy absorbed to fuel the ancient machines. Within an hour, Sung Woo's entire fleet was gone. The Devourer scouts, now 3 times their original size, continued into Dominion space, consuming asteroids, space stations, and anything else they encountered. The emergency session of the Dominion Council was very different from the previous meetings. Chancellor Haewon's usual arrogance was gone, replaced by barely controlled terror. "The reports are confirmed," she said quietly. "Our most powerful fleet was completely destroyed without inflicting any damage on the enemy. These Devourers, they're exactly what the humans warned us about. Our weapons are useless," reported General Kyung-soo. "The Devourers absorb energy attacks and physical projectiles alike. They seem to convert all matter they touch into more of themselves." Dr. Min-soo, still pale from analyzing the Devourer remains, spoke up. "The technology is beyond our comprehension. These machines operate on principles we don't understand, using forces we can't detect. They're not just more advanced than us, they might as well be gods." For the first time in 48,000 years, the Dominion Council faced the reality that they were not the masters of the galaxy. They were not even significant players in the cosmic struggle that was coming. They were simply the next meal for ancient horrors that had been consuming civilizations since before their species had learned to make fire. "Contact the humans," Chancellor Haewon said finally, the words bitter in her mouth. Tell them the Dominion formally requests their assistance in defending the galaxy." Pride had nearly doomed them all, but perhaps with humanity's help there was still time to learn humility and survive what was coming. The real war was about to begin, and the galaxy's only hope lay in the hands of the species they had tried to destroy. Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho commanded the largest military force in Dominion history. 7,000 ships from all 7 species floated in formation near the edge of the void sectors, their weapons charged and ready. For weeks, the mysterious attackers had been demonstrating their power. Now finally, they had agreed to meet. The human ships appeared without warning. One moment, empty space stretched before the Dominion fleet. The next, dozens of impossible vessels materialized as if stepping out of a hidden dimension. They were beautiful and terrifying, flowing organic shapes that seemed alive, their hulls rippling with patterns of light. Kyung-ho stared at the largest ship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even his flagship. "How many are there?" he asked his sensor officer. "I'm reading 47 ships, Admiral. But, sir, the energy readings don't match what I'm seeing. It's like there are more ships there than my instruments can detect." A communication request came through on all frequencies simultaneously. Kyung-ho accepted it, and his main screen filled with the image of a man who looked human but clearly wasn't entirely human anymore. Captain Woo Jin stood before them wearing no uniform, no armor, just simple clothes that seemed to shift color in the light. His skin had a subtle luminescence, and his eyes held depths that spoke of experiences beyond anything the Dominion could imagine. "Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho," Wu Jin said, his voice carrying an accent from ancient Earth that hadn't been heard in the galaxy for millennia. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. We have much to discuss." "You're human," Kyung-ho said, though it sounded more like a question than a statement. "We are what humanity became," Wu Jin replied. "After your people tried to exterminate us." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Every officer on every ship in the Dominion fleet knew the truth now. The classified documents had been leaked, the real history revealed. The comfortable lie of humanity's self-destruction had been exposed. A second figure joined Wu Jin on the screen. Ambassador Sumin moved with fluid grace, her form somehow more present than anyone around her. When she spoke, her words seemed to resonate directly in the minds of those listening. "We know this revelation is difficult," Sumin said. "You have lived for 48,000 years believing we were extinct. Your civilizations built their foundations on our graves, but we survived, and we have spent this time learning and growing." "Impossible," Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho said. "Our records show that all human colonies were destroyed. We monitored the void sectors for thousands of years after the war. Nothing came out." Wu Jin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You monitored the areas where our colonies had been. You never looked beyond the galactic rim, into the spaces between galaxies. That's where we went, Admiral, into the dark void that you thought was empty." Dr. Young-min appeared beside them, his enhanced form crackling with barely contained energy. The data ports built into his temples pulsed with information flows that would overwhelm any unmodified mind. "While you built your dominion on the ruins of our worlds," Young-min said, "we were studying you. Every ship that entered the void sectors, every probe you sent to monitor the boundaries, every communication signal you broadcast, we intercepted it all." He gestured, and holographic displays filled the space between the fleets. Star charts showing Dominion territories complete with military positions, resource distributions, and population centers. Technical specifications for every ship design, every weapon system, every defense network. "We know your technology better than you do," Young-min continued. "We know your biology, your psychology, your weaknesses. We have watched you for millennia, learning everything about the species that tried to destroy us." Admiral Kyung-ho felt cold fear creeping up his spine. "If you know so much about us, why haven't you attacked? Why reveal yourselves now?" "Because we didn't survive 48,000 years in the void, just to become the monsters you tried to make us," Sumin replied. "We could have destroyed your dominion at any point in the last 20,000 years. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses cannot stop our technology. But we chose not to become conquerors." Wu Jin stepped forward, his image somehow becoming more solid, more real. "We're here because something is coming. Something that makes our old conflicts seem small and pointless." The holographic displays shifted, showing images from deep space. Massive structures moving between galaxies, consuming everything in their path. Ships the size of moons. Beings of pure energy that could reshape matter with a thought. "The Devourers," Young-min said quietly. "Ancient machines from the space between galaxies. They wake every few million years to harvest the energy from younger civilizations. We've been tracking their approach for 10,000 years. They're coming here," Sumin added, "to this galaxy. They'll arrive in approximately 6 months, and when they do, every world, every species, every trace of life will be consumed to fuel their expansion." Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho stared at the images in horror. "How do you know about these Devourers?" "Because we've been fighting them," Wu Jin replied. "In the void between galaxies, we've been the last line of defense, holding them back while your species grew and prospered. We've lost entire fleets, sacrificed whole generations, all to buy you time." The revelation hit the Dominion fleet like a physical blow. While they had been building their comfortable civilization, believing themselves the masters of the galaxy, humanity had been protecting them from horrors beyond imagination. "Why?" Kyung-ho asked. "After what we did to you, why would you protect us?" Sumin's expression softened. "Because we learned something in the void that you never had the chance to learn. Revenge is a luxury that living beings cannot afford when facing extinction. The Devourers don't care about our past conflicts. They will consume human and Dominion alike. We need to work together," Wu Jin said. "Your fleets, our technology, combined in a way that has never been attempted. It's the only chance any of us have. Dr. Young Min activated another display, showing tactical assessments and battle plans. The Devourers are nearly invincible, but they have weaknesses. They adapt to any single type of attack, but they struggle against coordinated assaults using completely different technologies. Dominion weapons and human abilities working together might be enough. But first, Sumin said, you need to understand what we've become. She gestured to the human ships, and suddenly the space around them came alive with activity. Beings that looked human but moved like living energy flowed between the vessels. Ships transformed and reconfigured themselves like living creatures. Weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality, charged with power that made the Dominion fleet's weapons look like toys. We are no longer bound by flesh alone, Wu Jin explained. We have learned to merge with our technology, to exist as both organic and artificial intelligence. We can survive in the vacuum of space, interface directly with our ships, and manipulate matter at the quantum level. We are what humanity needed to become to survive what you did to us, Young Min added. But more importantly, we are what humanity needed to become to protect the galaxy from what is coming. The communication ended, leaving Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho staring at empty space where the human ships had been. They had vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, but their message remained. The Devourers were coming, and only a united galaxy had any hope of survival. The question was whether the Dominion could overcome 48,000 years of guilt and fear to work with the species they had tried to exterminate. The comfortable delusion was shattered. The galaxy's future now depended on facing the truth of its past and finding the courage to build something better from the ruins of old hatred. Captain Hyunwoo stared at the screen in disbelief. His patrol ship had been cruising the edge of the void sectors for 3 months without finding anything unusual. The void sectors were empty space, everyone knew that. They had been empty for 48,000 years, but now something floated in the darkness ahead of his ship. It looked old and broken, spinning slowly through the black void. The metal hull was strange, different from any ship design he knew. The patterns and angles reminded him of something from the history books, but that was impossible. "Captain," said Dr. So-jin, looking up from her science station, "I'm getting some very odd readings from that wreck." Hyunwoo moved closer to her console. So-jin was the best scientist in the fleet, and if something puzzled her, it was worth attention. "What kind of readings?" "The metal composition is unlike anything in our databases. The design patterns suggest—" She paused, checking her instruments again. "Sir, this looks like human technology." "That's impossible," Hyunwoo said firmly. "Humans destroyed themselves 48,000 years ago. Everyone knows that story." So-jin nodded, but her expression remained troubled. "I know the history, Captain. But look at these readings. This ship isn't 48,000 years old. According to my scans, it was built maybe 300 years ago." Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. 300 years ago, humans were supposed to have been extinct for 47,700 years. "Are you sure about those readings?" "I've checked them 5 times. The metal shows clear signs of age, but not ancient age. And there's something else." So-jin turned her screen toward him. "There are still power readings coming from inside." Against all safety protocols, Hyunwoo decided to board the derelict ship. He took 2 security officers and So-jin with him. Their magnetic boots clanked against the strange metal as they entered through a torn section of hull. Inside, emergency lights flickered weakly. The corridors were built for beings about the same size as the Dominion species, but the design was completely different. Everything seemed more organic, as if the ship had been grown rather than built. They found the ship's computer core still functioning on backup power. So-jin connected her portable translator, and slowly, the ancient files began to open. What they found made no sense. The ship's logs spoke of something called the Great Dispersal. They mentioned humanity's long journey, home, and coordinates for something called Staging Area Omega. But most disturbing of all, the final log entry was dated only 2 years ago. Captain Dongwoo of the exploration vessel New Seoul recording final log. The translation read, "We've completed our survey of the inner spiral arm. The Dominion species remain unaware of our presence. Recommend continuing to observe and gather data. The Council of Elders believes we're almost ready for the next phase." End log. Hyunwoo stared at the words on the screen. This has to be fake. Some kind of alien trick. But So-jin was examining other files. "Captain, look at this. These are star charts, but they show regions of space that aren't in any of our maps, areas beyond the outer rim in the darkness between galaxies. Meanwhile, on the Dominion capital world of Nexus Prime, Admiral Tae-min was dealing with his own mysteries. His assistant had just handed him another report of missing ships near the void sectors. That makes 12 ships in 6 months, Tae-min muttered, reading the report. All disappeared near the boundary zones. The boundary zones were the edges of the void sectors, areas that had been sealed off by ancient treaty between the 7 Dominion species. No one was supposed to go there, and no one did. At least no one was supposed to. Tae-min decided to check the old archives. The treaty documents were stored in the deepest levels of the government complex, in files so old that most people had forgotten they existed. What he found there made his blood run cold. The void sectors weren't empty by accident. 48,000 years ago, they had been full of human colonies, hundreds of worlds, billions of people, entire civilizations, and then in the span of just a few years they had all gone silent. The official history said humans had destroyed themselves in nuclear wars, but the classified documents told a different story. They spoke of joint military operations and population management protocols. They used clean, simple words to describe something horrible. The 7 species of the Dominion had worked together to kill every human they could find. They had surrounded human space, cut off all escape routes, and systematically destroyed world after world. The documents called it necessary for galactic stability, but even more disturbing was what the documents didn't say. They listed hundreds of human worlds as neutralized, but there were gaps. References to colonies that had escaped the net, and dispersal protocols activated. Some humans had gotten away. Tae-min sat in the dark archive room, surrounded by the records of genocide, and realized the truth. The monitoring stations around the void sectors weren't watching empty space. They were watching for survivors. And now, after 48,000 years, those survivors might be coming home. Back on Hyunwoo's ship, Sojin had made another discovery.
Hidden in the derelict ship's computer were communication logs.
Messages sent and received over thousands of years. Most were too encrypted to read, but some fragments came through clearly. Observation Post 7 reporting. Dominion fleet movements normal. No indication they suspect surveillance. Long-range Scout 12 returning to base. Recommend delaying contact for another 1,000 years. They're not ready yet. Council decision final. Begin Phase 1 reconnaissance immediately. The messages painted a picture that terrified Hyunwoo. Humanity hadn't died out. They had been hiding, watching, waiting. And now they were planning something. The final message was the most chilling of all. It was sent just 1 month ago. All units return to staging areas immediately. Phase 2 begins now. It's time to go home. Hyunwoo looked at Sojin, seeing his own fear reflected in her eyes. We need to report this immediately. But as they prepared to leave the derelict ship, their own vessel's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect Alterian, but with an accent that hadn't been heard in the galaxy for 48,000 years. Captain Hyunwoo of the patrol ship Star's Edge. This is Commander Ji-hoon of the human vessel Remembrance. We've been waiting a long time to talk to you. Permission to come aboard? Outside the viewport, a ship began to materialize out of empty space. It was massive, sleek, and completely impossible. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and strange lights pulsed along its surface. Hyunwoo stared at the impossible ship and realized that everything the galaxy thought it knew was about to change. The humans were back, and they were nothing like the primitive species the history books described. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy's comfortable delusion was about to be shattered forever. Commander Ji-ho studied the reports with growing unease. 3 entire Dominion fleets had vanished in the past month. Not destroyed, simply gone. No debris, no distress calls, no survivors. It was as if they had been erased from existence. The attacks followed a pattern that made no military sense. The missing fleets had been positioned at strategic points throughout Dominion space, but not the most important ones. Supply lines remained untouched. Major military bases were ignored. Instead, the attackers seemed to target fleets with the highest morale, the best reputations, the most loyal crews. Ji-ho spread the star charts across his desk, marking each disappearance with a red dot. When he connected the dots, they formed a rough circle around the void sectors. Someone was systematically removing the Dominion's best military units from positions around the forbidden zones. Sir, His aide interrupted. Priority message from High Command. They want you to attend an emergency briefing. The briefing room was filled with the highest-ranking officers from all 7 Dominion species. Jiho had never seen them look so worried. General Kyung-min of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the front, his usual confidence replaced by barely controlled fear. Gentlemen, Kyung-min began, we are facing an unprecedented threat. In the past 6 weeks, we have lost contact with 17 fleets, 43 scout ships, and 12 deep space monitoring stations. Our best analysts believe we are dealing with a new form of warfare. Admiral Sung-ho from the Korthak fleet raised his hand. What kind of warfare can make entire fleets disappear without a trace? We don't know, Kyung-min admitted, but we have recovered some debris from the latest incident. Our scientists are analyzing it now, and their initial findings are disturbing. On the research station Kepler-7, Dr. Minsu examined the twisted metal fragments under his most powerful microscope. What he saw challenged everything he knew about technology and physics. The metal wasn't just advanced, it was alive. Microscopic structures moved through it like blood vessels, carrying energy and information. The alloy contained elements that didn't exist in nature, materials that could only be created in the hearts of dying stars. Ha-Young, he called to his assistant engineer. Come look at this. Ha-Young peered into the scope and gasped. Those molecular patterns, they're similar to organic neural networks but made of metal. How is that possible? I don't know, Minsu replied. But there's something else. Look at these quantum signatures. He switched to another scanner, showing energy patterns that pulsed through the metal like a heartbeat. The signatures were complex, layered, containing information compressed at levels far beyond Dominion technology. It's like the ship was thinking, Ha-Young whispered. The metal itself was processing information, making decisions. Minsu nodded grimly. And there's something else. I've been comparing these fragments to samples in our historical database. The basic design philosophy matches something from our archives, human technology from 48,000 years ago, but evolved far beyond anything they should have been capable of. The implications were staggering. If humans had somehow survived their supposed extinction, and if they had spent 48,000 years advancing their technology in secret, they would be so far ahead of the Dominion that the current galactic civilization would seem primitive by comparison. In the diplomatic chambers of the Saranathi homeworld, Ambassador Unji tried to maintain peace between increasingly panicked Dominion representatives. Each species was blaming the others for the mysterious attacks. Old rivalries and suspicions were surfacing as fear took hold. The Korthaks must be behind this, accused Delegate Namwu of the Alterian Republic. They've always wanted to expand their territory. Ridiculous, snapped Admiral Tae-Young of the Korthak Empire. Why would we destroy our own fleets? This is obviously some kind of Zephyrian secret weapon. Yunji raised her hands for silence. Fighting among ourselves won't solve anything. We need to work together to identify the real threat. But privately, she was beginning to suspect the truth. The attack patterns, the advanced technology. The way the attackers seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum psychological impact. It all suggested an enemy that understood the Dominion better than the Dominion understood itself. Late that night, Yunji accessed the classified archives that only the highest-level diplomats were allowed to see. What she found there made her hands shake as she read. The real history of humanity's extinction was written in clinical, bureaucratic language that tried to hide the horror of what had been done. The Dominion hadn't just waited for humans to destroy themselves. They had actively worked to make it happen. Economic warfare had weakened human colonies. Biological weapons had been deployed against human crops and livestock. When humans finally began to fight back, it had been used as justification for defensive measures that became systematic genocide. But the reports mentioned something else. In the final days of the war, many human ships had fled toward the galactic rim. The Dominion fleets had pursued them, but several groups had escaped into the dark space between galaxies. The reports called them negligible survivors and assumed they would die in the void. Yunji realized those negligible survivors might have done more than just survive. They might have thrived. The attacks escalated over the following weeks, but they remained surgical and precise. Entire star systems found their communication networks disabled, their defense platforms neutralized, their government buildings surrounded by mysterious ships that appeared from nowhere. But no civilians were harmed. No cities were destroyed. The attackers disabled military targets with incredible precision, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. It was as if they wanted to demonstrate their power without actually using it. Commander Wu Xin of the 7th Patrol Fleet was one of the few officers to actually see the attackers. His ship had been investigating a disabled monitoring station when 3 unknown vessels appeared. They were unlike anything in our databases, he reported later. The ship seemed to flow and change shape as we watched. Our weapons locked onto them, but the targeting systems couldn't get a solid reading. It was as if they were partially out of phase with normal space. One of the mysterious ships had opened a communication channel. A figure appeared on the screen, humanoid but changed in ways that were hard to describe. The being's skin seemed to shimmer with internal light, and its eyes held an intelligence that was both ancient and alien. "We mean you no harm," the figure had said in perfect Dominion standard, "but we cannot allow you to interfere. Return to your home port and tell your commanders that the time for hiding is over." "We have been patient, but our patience has limits." Wu Xin had tried to respond, to ask questions, but the transmission cut off. The 3 ships had simply faded away, leaving his patrol alone with the disabled station. Back on Nexus Prime, Admiral Tae Min compiled all the reports and reached a conclusion that terrified him. The attackers weren't aliens from outside the galaxy. They were something much worse. They were the descendants of the humans the Dominion thought they had exterminated. 48,000 years of evolution, advancement, and preparation in the dark void between galaxies had created something beyond the Dominion's ability to fight or understand. And now they were coming home. The comfortable lie that the galaxy had told itself for millennia was crumbling. Humanity had never been destroyed. They had been watching, learning, growing stronger, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. And that moment had finally arrived.